Hello and welcome to this edition of the Electronic Filing System webinar. This will be broadcast over the internet and for those of you without speakers, also by conference call. If you have chosen to participate by conference call, you may have to mute your computer volume if you have speakers. Let's get started.
Hello, I'm John Lund, Director of the Office of Labor Management Standards. I'd like to welcome all of you today. I'm very glad you could join us. This is the second of several rollouts to LM-2 filers of our EFS system, which is the nickname for Electronic Form System. This will replace the version requiring Adobe Acrobat and digital signatures that all LM-2 filers have been required to use since 2005. We've been developing and are currently testing the EFS system, and we're planning to release it later this summer. On the screen, our EFS LM2 form, as you'll see, looks almost exactly like the current electronic system, but the online help has been greatly improved. But I want to emphasize, none of the reporting requirements have changed. There aren't any new schedules. There's no new questions. Let me just make that absolutely clear again. The information we're asking for hasn't changed at all. What's changed is the way in which you'll participate, and you will not be using any more digital signatures, and there will be no more Adobe Acrobat. Again, just to repeat, this new system abolishes the digital signature and it gets rid of Adobe Acrobat. That means you won't have to look all over for Adobe Acrobat version 7. And if you could be participating, I would be hearing cheers and yells of exclamation now, I hope. You won't have to make multiple copies of the most recently saved electronic version of your LM2, and above all, you won't have to purchase that digital signature. Instead, as Lisa Williford, my colleague who will lead this seminar, will demonstrate, once you get a password and identification numbers and log in, you'll simply enter the information for filing your LM2 form into a secure web-based application. If there's anybody else at your local or intermediate union that you want to have access to the system, you're going to provide them with the necessary private identification number or PIN. So today's webinar is going to demonstrate how, first of all, you'll register for the new system and other information you're going to need to get up and running. Once you get started, I think you're going to agree with me, this is a much better system. OLMS has listened for some time to those LM2, 3, and 4 filers regarding the current electronic system, and particularly the difficulties they've been having with the digital signature in Adobe, and we have acted. The career staff here at OLMS began work on this project long before I arrived last year. I'm really honored to serve with colleagues like Lisa Williford, who will conduct the seminar, and all of her outstanding team and contractors. I'd also like to thank the 12 union financial officers and accountants who pre-tested the software with us in May. They were very helpful in testing it, making several very good suggestions which we've incorporated. For those of you LM2 filers participating in the webinar today, we think you'll find this is a better, much more user-friendly product. I want to mention too that EFS, while currently available for LM2 filers, we expect very shortly to make it available for LM3 and LM4 filers. And I know from personal experience one of the biggest obstacles to LM3 filers and even LM4 filers using it was the cost of the digital signature. Well, with EFS that we're going to demonstrate today, that obstacle is removed. And again, a pitch, if I may, for electronic filing. It's faster than the paper method. It requires less work than using paper forms. EFS does all the math for you, and it makes sure that your form is complete before you file it, which means a less likelihood you'll ever have to file an amended form later on. Before you can actually transmit the form, it will validate the form and make sure that you filled out everything correctly and completely. And then once you've clicked your way to the signature line, it'll transmit the form with a single click to us here in Washington, D.C. You'll even get an electronic receipt you can print out for confirmation. Well, folks, thanks again for joining us today. If you'd like additional training on EFS, or if you have any suggestions or ideas for improving, please contact us. And I'll turn it now back over to Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Today I will walk you through a demonstration of how to register and use the EFS system. At the end we'll have a question and answer session. You may type your questions into the questions box at any time and we'll address as many of these as we can. Due to the number of participants today, we will not be able to take verbal questions. As John mentioned in his introduction, this will eventually be the replacement for the electronic filing of all annual reports. We have been testing and debugging the system, and we are still continuing to improve the software to ensure that it is ready to be released. We are planning to release EFS later this summer after the thorough testing is complete. The first thing that I'm going to do is walk you through the user registration. The EFS system is the Office of Labor Management Standards web-based reporting system for the LM-2 and eventually the LM-3 and the LM-4 financial reports. Because the system is web-based, multiple users can access the form from different locations. Users will no longer have to purchase digital signatures, as John mentioned, to sign the forms. And the form can be prepared over a period of time and worked on as needed. So no software downloads will be required. This will be a web-based system. It will be much easier to share amongst colleagues for signing. So first let's look at how to register and obtain a password. Every person who needs to prepare, sign, or review the forms will need to register for an EFS user account and password to access the system. This is the EFS main screen. To register for an EFS user account and password, you'll click the link that says click here, and you'll be taken to a screen where you'll enter some information to register yourself. This will ask you if you are an officer responsible for signing the form, and you'll have to check yes or no at this point, and then move through a series of questions. If you prepare, review, or sign the LM form, you will need to register and establish a user ID and password. I just want to make that clear. Every single person that will be using the system will need a user ID and password. The system asks for general user information, your name, initial, last name, title, a phone number for contact information, and your email address, because we will be emailing you information like a registration confirmation or any other at any other point. If you make changes to the form, you'll receive a message, an email message confirmation. You'll choose a unique user ID and create a user ID that you can easily remember. You'll also choose your password, and you'll be asked to retype your password. And for additional security, we have a security question. You'll be asked to select this and enter an answer, and this is in case later on you lose your password or forget your password, you'll be able to retrieve it. Once you've completed the registration form, you can click the Register Me button, and you'll receive a user registration confirmation both on the screen and also through email. Now what we've just done there is register you as a user to the system. In addition to access the system, you will need to obtain a PIN for the union that you're going to be working on. So let me talk a little bit about the PIN. The PIN is the private identification number assigned to a union and known only by those who will need to access the union information through EFS. There will be one PIN assigned to each union for a filing period. So a union should select one representative to obtain the unique private identification number, or PIN. Only one PIN will be assigned to each filing union, and the union representative assigned to obtain the PIN will then distribute this PIN to any individuals who prepare, review, or sign the LM forms. Unions will need to obtain a new PIN for each filing period to prevent unauthorized access to the LM forms, and there is no charge associated with obtaining this PIN. So back on the registration screen, you'll click the Click Here button to obtain a PIN, and once again, this is only the union representative that is designated will have to do this step. Once they have obtained the PIN, they can distribute it to anybody who will need to work on the forms. So in order to obtain the PIN, you'll enter the user ID and password that you created for yourself and the filing number of the union that you will be obtaining the PIN for. And that is, the filing number for the union is box 1 of your LM report. Once again, just to stress, only one representative from the union will obtain the PIN. Once you see that once you enter the information in the union filing number, you'll be asked to confirm the information, including the union's address. Now, if the address is not correct that we have on file, you should contact our office and update your address. But in the meantime, you can enter an address in which to send the union PIN registration letter. Now, what we have here, you will be able to obtain the PIN registering here, and we will also send a confirmation letter to the mailing address on file, as well as the address that you are entering here. And this is a security measure that we have put in place so that any updates or changes to the PIN, the union office will be notified by mail. We will not send the PIN through the mail. Instead, the PIN will be sent via email to the email address on file for the registrant. So you'll receive a notification that your union registration has been confirmed, and then as well the PIN will be sent to the email on file for the union representative. The union representative should then distribute the PIN to those who need to access the form. And as I mentioned, the letter will be mailed to the addressees on record for the union to notify them of any activities relating to obtaining or updating the PIN. This is another security feature to prevent other unauthorized access to the forms. Okay, I'm going to switch over now and demonstrate the system and the LM-2 form. So as I just went through, this is what the OLMS EFS main screen looks like, and on the left hand side we have the registration where you can register for yourself, you can obtain a PIN, or you can edit account information once you've set up an account. So to obtain a PIN, I'll click and enter my user ID. And I'll receive the information so I can confirm that we've got the right information on file, and then click Register Union. And I'll receive the union PIN registration confirmation on the screen, as well as I'll receive an email in my inbox. And then this email will confirm that I've registered correctly, and I will receive the 6-digit PIN that I'll need to access the system. If you register for a PIN and do not receive an email within an hour or so after registering, you may want to check your email address. If you need to make any changes to your account, you can click the Edit Account Information screen, and you'll enter your user ID and password, and you'll be able to go in and access your account information and make updates. So you can double check your email address, or if you need to change your email address or phone number or any other information, you'll be able to do it from here. Additionally, if you forget your password or your user ID, we have links where you'll be able to go in and enter your user ID and email address, and you'll have your email address, the password sent to your email address. And if you forget your user ID, the same thing, you can enter your email address. You'll be taken through a series of security questions. So I'll go ahead and log in now to the system. Once you've logged into the system, you'll have a choice of 3 things: to continue to work on any forms you may have in progress, to start a new form, or amend an already submitted form. Please note you will only be able to amend forms that were submitted through the EFS system. You will not be able to amend forms that were submitted through the previous Adobe form system. To start a new form, you'll be able to select the filing year, the type of form. Right now it's just the LM-2, and the period covered on the report, and you'll click the Get Form button. To continue to work on forms in progress, you'll get a list of any forms that you have in progress. You'll only be able to work on one form for one fiscal year at a time. As John mentioned, the form looks very similar to the way the form looks now. However, we have a lot of very nice features built into the new form. I'd like to go through a few of those now. For example, navigation. We have improved the navigation of the system. You'll be able to navigate through the form using arrows at the top of your screen, or you can scroll on this left pane and jump quickly to any of the schedules and pages in the form. We also have included some nice help features built right into the form. For example, there is a help link which will open up the help and information for specific to the page that you are on. So this is information items 10 to 21 on page 2. And this opens up the form instructions and helpful information. You'll also be able to scroll through these instructions. You can keep them open and scroll back through page 1 or statement A instructions. We've also included mouse overs that will give you tips for filling out a particular item, or it will tell you what type of information you need to enter in a particular screen. Like this, the format for this should be month, month, year, 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 year. All right, I'm going to scroll over here to Schedule 1, and this is a good time to point out that when you're moving through the form, we have page-by-page validations available, which means that instead of waiting until the end of the form to validate the entire thing, as you move through the form, you will be instructed on what items need to be entered before you move to the next page. You don't have to correct those items now, however, it's just a reminder that you will have some things that you will need to fix before you'll be able to sign and submit the form. In this case, if you say OK, you'll be able to correct the items now, or you can say cancel and you can move to the next page and come back and fix the items later. So Schedule 1, another feature of the form that we have is in the old Adobe forms, when you needed to add continuation pages, you added them as you needed them, but it added them in the order at the end of the form. And now with this new form, the schedules keep all of your continuations in one schedule on one page. So if you notice here, you start out with 10 blank rows, but if you need to add additional rows, you can click the button. And now if you notice, you'll be able to see the 20 rows. We've added 10 additional rows. So I'm going to enter an accounts receivable amount here, and just to demonstrate the validation again, when you enter numeric information, you'll notice that the totals are not automatically populated. You'll have to click the Save and Calculate button in order for the totals to appear. And this is to make it faster and more efficient to move through the form, so it's not calculating after every number that you enter. You can control when you save and calculate. You will want to save and calculate often, and the form will prompt you to do this as you move from page to page. So now I've entered some information here in Schedule 1, and I'm going to click Navigate to the next schedule. But before I do, once again, it reminds me that I've got items that have not passed the validation, and it will ask me if I'd like to correct them. So I'm going to go ahead and correct that. I'll save my data. And now I can move on to the next page. I would also like to demonstrate the other method for entering data into the form, which is importing data. Now we've kept the import files, the structure for the import files the same. So if you have existing import files that you use or a system that generates your import files, you should not have to make changes to the structure of your files. I'm going to import a CSV file for Schedule 11. And I'm going to choose a file that I know has an error in it. So I try to import a file that has an error, but I would receive a message that says the import operation failed, and then it should give you specific information as to the error and the type of error and how to correct it. So you'll need to correct these errors in the import file before you can import. So I have a corrected file. And now I've just imported Schedule 11 data. You can scroll down and see all of the data that has been imported. The import also works. It works for all of the schedules except for Schedule 13. Schedules 14 through 19 require two import files, a master file which contains the payers or payees, and the detail file which contains the purpose date and amounts for these schedules. You'll notice the schedule looks a little different. Following suit, everything is located on one page, and if you add more data, it'll all be contained in this one page rather than adding it to the end and continuing to add down. There's a drop-down menu, which right now is blank, but as we add pairs, you'll see that that will fill up. So I'll go ahead and import data for this schedule. And by the way, you can import from any location in the form. You don't have to be on the schedule. Select the master file, and I'll select the detail file. And now, as you can see here, we have the drop-down box is populated with the payers for this particular schedule. So you can use this to scroll between your different payers, or we can also scroll using these arrows. And everything is contained once again on this one page. Okay, one more thing to point out here is that you'll be able at any time to print this report. There is a print button up here. This will allow you to print a paper copy of the report, or you can print a file, so you can share this report through email or other methods with anybody who needs to review it. You'll also be able to add attachments. So if you need to upload a constitution and bylaws along with your report, you'll be able to attach a file, and you can attach multiple files of varying types. And this will be reviewable as well with the rest of the report. Before you can submit the report, you will need to go through the validation process. I'm getting the message that my cache figures do not reconcile, which is not unexpected because I started out with an empty form and have not entered a whole lot of information into it. But like all the other additional information pieces, it asks you if you want to enter this now or enter it later, so you can save and enter data now. And now it'll give me the validation summary. And this is telling me that there are certain pieces of information that I haven't answered yet. So from here I can click and the navigation will take me back to the page where I need to enter the data. And I can go ahead and enter information. Throughout the form will prompt you if you need to enter additional information. So for example, I checked yes here, and I'm prompted to provide some additional information. If I say enter later, the additional information prompt remains red to remind me that I will need to enter additional information here. To go back and enter the additional information, I'll be able to double click and enter my additional information and click Save. And now the prompt will turn green, alerting me that I've entered additional information. If I need to edit that, I can click it again and I'll be able to go back in and edit this information. The additional information can be found in one of the navigation options. And you'll have a list of all your additional information, and if you need to edit this, it'll take you back to the page so that you can get back in and edit your additional information. So because we have so many things to correct in this particular form, I'm going to log out and log back in and take you to a form that is more complete so I can demonstrate the signing and submitting of the form. Okay, so this is a form that I have chosen to amend, and this data is fairly complete, so I'll just need to validate the form. And I'll get a message that the form has passed the validation check. And now, as you can see, the signature boxes are red, which indicates that the form can now be signed. So I will click to sign, and a box will pop up with an attestation that basically states that by your name and entering your password below, you attest that you are who you say you are and are signing the form. This does take the place of the digital signature process. So this is the new method for signing the form. So I'll enter my password and click sign, and there's my signature and the date that I signed. Now if I were to make any changes to the form, the signature disappears. So if any changes are made to the form, this form will have to be re-signed. So now I've signed the form, and as the president, and the secretary-treasurer will also need to sign. So I'll need to log out, and the secretary-treasurer will need to log in. Okay, so now the secretary-treasurer can sign. So now the form has been signed by both individuals. There is a link here if you need to sign, if more than two people need to sign the form, you can add additional signatures. But you must have at least 2 signatures on the form. And now the form is ready to be submitted. I'd like to take a minute to point out here that while the existing system, you download a version of the form and then work offline. When you go to submit, it takes a lot longer because you're uploading all of the data that has been entered into the form across the internet. With this system, you're working online, and so you'll be able to easily share the form if your president is located in one state and your secretary treasurer is located in another state and the accountant that's helping to prepare the forms is located somewhere else. You'll be able to easily share the form because it'll just be a matter of going onto the website and logging in. So when you go to sign the form, the process should be a lot easier. And then the data you're working on is already uploaded essentially, and it'll just be a matter of submitting it and transferring it over into the permanent database, and therefore you'll be able to quickly submit the form rather than waiting long periods of time for the form to upload. So here I've submitted the form and I've received the confirmation number that the form has been accepted for processing, and you'll want to take a note of your confirmation number. You can also print the screen. And then at this point, the form has been submitted and would be available on the public disclosure site. So you'll be able to go to the public disclosure site and view the form online. Now this is only a test form, so this is not actually available on our public disclosure site. So that is the basic demonstration of the LM-2 form. There are a couple of more things. Only one user can work on the forms at a time. I think I mentioned this, but just to be clear, so while someone is working on the form, and then once they log out, others can come in and review and work on the form. The system is web-based, so you can work on and prepare import files offline, but data entry occurs online. For security reasons, all data that is in progress prior to submission is kept in a separate database that only the system administrator has access to. Only after submission do all MS staff have access, and does the report data go up on the disclosure site. So that is a question that we've received several times, and that is the way this is handled. The temporary database is only a temporary database. Once you've submitted your report, it goes into our permanent database and is cleared out of the temporary database that only you have access to. We hope to have the forms ready within the next month. We are working very hard to test and make sure that the forms are ready to go out so they are in use. We recognize that people have had a lot of trouble using the Adobe forms and dealing with digital signatures, and we really want to make this system as great as possible for you. So here's some information. We have the OLMS Forms Technical Support Number, and it's the same number that you use now for calling for support if you have trouble with your LM-2 forms, and you'll be able to use the same number if you have issues with the LM-2 forms and the 3 and 4 forms as well. If you have trouble with user registration, or if, for example, you need to revoke the PIN or have any issues with forgetting the PIN, you'll be able to contact our help desk and they'll be able to help you out. So this PowerPoint presentation and other information regarding EFS will be found on our website at the following URL here. And if you have additional questions or comments after this webinar, you'll be able to send them to OLMS at the OLMS Public or contact your OLMS local district office.